Today I'm going to be showing you how to get a hand-painted floral look on a jewelry box. But first I want to show you our inspiration piece and point out that this piece is $579. I'm going to show you how to get this look on a much lower budget. For my base, I'm going to be using Dixie Belle paint from the new Silk line, and my color is called Anchor. It's this rich, pure black. I start by taking my jewelry box completely apart. This includes removing all of the doors and drawers, removing the glass from the fronts, and any other moving parts that it has on it. This allows me to get a really clean, smooth base coat on my piece. I'm using my Dixie Belle round small brush, which is the perfect size for painting on these small pieces. I also frequently use the flat small on jewelry boxes. This is when you really learn how nice it is to have different size brushes for different size jobs. Materials list today includes Dixie Belle paint in tea rose, fluff, daisy, collard greens tinted with the Gulf and antebellum over our base of Anchor. The nice thing about the new Silk line is you can layer it with the existing Dixie Belle paint colors. As I had started by cleaning my piece really well with Dixie Belle White Lightning and then rinsing it clean of any cleaning residue with water. Once I've got 2 even coats of my Dixie Belle Silk on my piece, I can start reassembling the pieces of my jewelry box. It's really important on these boxes that you make sure to set aside all of your hardware together. These little tiny screws can be easily lost. Once my box is reassembled, we're going to start laying on our hand-painted flower detail. I think you'll find that these flowers are really a simple accent to add. Hand painting can be intimidating, but I think you'll find this is a really easy one. If you're still worried about hand painting, you can also use a small floral stencil to get a similar design. Okay, you ready for some hand painting? I'm going to start by using a watercolor brush. This is a brush that you fill with water, and I've mixed it with my Dixie Belle paint on the inside. I'm just dipping it into a little bit of more paint from my lid just to get a really saturated line. This allows you to paint like a watercolor using your Dixie Belle paint. Next, I'm going to be using a flat tip synthetic bristle artist brush and Dixie Belle fluff. I'm just going to take the edge of my brush and swipe it to create these sort of pointy strokes for my flower petals. I fill in any spots that I feel are blank with my flowers. I can always come back later and add some vines to attach them later. Next, I'm going to be taking a paper plate, and I filled my plate with a little bit of Dixie Belle Daisy and Dixie Belle Fluff. On yet another synthetic bristle artist brush, I filled half of my brush with Daisy and the other half with Fluff. Now, with simple strokes, I can create these two-tone flowers. My next step is to take a fine-tipped artist brush with a little bit of my Dixie Belle Tea Rose. Just from the lid of my paint container is enough. With very little paint on my brush, I'm just going to create some soft feathering of the Dixie Belle Tea Rose all over the top of my fluff. You'll notice I'm pulling the paint from the center of the flowers to the outer edges, and this creates a softening of the color as you get to the outer rim. Any spots I feel are too harsh, I just use my finger to soften them a bit. Throughout this process, I think you'll find that it's the layering of colors that really gives depth and dimension to these hand-painted flowers. I'm building up the design from the ground floor up. I think you'll find the more layers you use, the more interest your hand-painted piece will have. The other thing I think you'll notice is that a good small artist brush set is a really important thing to have in your arsenal. With the tea rose over the top of my fluff on all my flowers, now it's time to actually connect my flowers to their stems. I'm going to come back with my watercolor brush. Now this again is filled with water along with a mix of Dixie Belle collard greens, the Gulf, and antebellum blue to create this soft medium green. I really like these watercolor brushes because they create these nice feathering soft strokes. So I'm just using these to create some soft little bottoms to my buds. You'll notice again that I'm pulling my brush from the center outwards. This is also the point where any flowers that are free floating, I would add the stems to them now. For our next step, let's take a look back at our inspiration piece. There is a yellow vine that weaves in and out of the flower vines. I'm just using a yellow colored pencil to trace out the line on my jewelry box. Now I'm going to come back with a very fine tipped brush dipped into my Dixie Belle Daisy, and I'm just going to go over that line that I just drew out. The watercolor brush filled with water and daisy would also work great for this. This does take a very steady hand, and I found that it helped quite a bit to work on this box with it facing horizontally instead of it standing up vertically like I have it right now. I'm going to continue that yellow line all the way down to the bottom of my piece, following the line I traced out with my yellow colored pencil. One note, I don't recommend using a regular gray graphite pencil when tracing out lines over your chalk paint. It can bleed through future layers of your chalk paint. If you look back at our inspiration piece, you'll see that our yellow vine does also have these fun yellow buds popping off the ends of it. I'm going to continue using my same brush that I used with my daisy to create the vine, and I'm just going to pull from the vine outwards and create these tiny little lines for these offshoots off my vine. I do them in varying directions, pulling from the center of my vine outward until I get to the bottom of my vine. The next detail on this yellow vine is the small buds that go at the end of each of these points. I'm just using my fine tip artist brush and creating little dots. I did end up switching later and just using the end of my paintbrush, the wooden handle part, to create small dots at the end of each of these points. Are you guys ready for the last step in this process? The last step in our layering is colored pencils. Did you know that colored pencils work beautifully over the matte chalky finish of chalk paints? Right now I'm using a dark brown and I'm just using it to go under the underside of my vines. So what you want to look for is what direction would your light be hitting your vine at? And I'm just going to the underside of all of those, and that's where my shadow would be. This little bit of brown gives me a soft two-tone look on my vines. I'm also going to use this dark brown pencil to create centers to my flowers that are fully opened. Once I create the center, I just pull my pencil a little bit outward from the center using the tip of my finger, and this creates a smudgy effect. Next, I'm using a sort of coral color colored pencil, and I'm just adding some even darker pink down to the bottom of my flowers. This gives me 3 tones of color with the coral of my colored pencil, the tea rose, and then the fluff on my flowers. All right, you guys, let's go around and finish this coral color on all of our flowers, and I think this is our last detail. Once this is all dry, I can go ahead and clear coat this box and take photos of it. With a little bit of Dixie Belle paint, some colored pencils, and a little bit of time, I have a box very similar to my inspiration on a much lower budget. Because this video has so many detailed steps and small strokes, I'm going to go ahead and leave it in real time so you can see every detail of it. I did have a few flowers that just needed the bottoms attached to the stem, so I'm coming back with my watercolor brush filled with my custom color green, and I'm just filling those in. And now we're coming up to our final product. If you guys enjoyed this video, I hope you'll click the subscribe button. You can also find more Brushed by Brandy on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest as well, all at Brushed by Brandy.